Today, we're going to talk about a question that a lot of people have. And if you don't have this question yet, now you will. Why on earth are the letters on the keyboard arranged like this? Today with us here is the Asus VivoBook 15. You may have seen this notebook in other videos from Manual du Mundo. It's a computer really focused on productivity. Its specs are powerful. This one here is the Asus VivoBook 15K513. It has an 11th generation Intel Core i7 processor and has been a real lifesaver for production here at Manual du Mundo. The history of the order of these keys is not very controversial, but regardless of which version we choose, the answer lies in the past. This order of the letters wasn't created today. It dates back to the late 19th century, when typewriters were invented and started to become popular. This name, QWERTY, when I was a child, I thought it was the name of the inventor of the keyboard. But no, it's called that because of the first 6 letters here on the keyboard. Who invented this order, actually? An order similar to this one, but that changed over time. It was created by a guy named Christopher Leighton Schultz. He worked at a newspaper in the United States, but he also made typewriters. If I press 2 letters whose arms are very close together, and when they get near the paper, they get tangled up. The U and the J are neighbors here. If I press both, they get tangled. The letter doesn't return, so the person has to put their hand here to bring it back. Look, same thing with the Y and the H. So, this keyboard arrangement, according to this story, was made to prevent letters that often appear close together. Like in Portuguese, U, E and then U, right? A word we use a lot when writing. If these 2 letters had their type bars together here in the machine, every time you typed U, the machine would jam. So, to prevent that from happening, you can distribute the letters in a smart way. Here, in this case for English, the machine would jam much less. But even though that reason makes a lot of sense, in practice we see that it doesn't work very well. For example, in English, the letters T and H very commonly appear together in words like this, that, etc. Look what happens if I press T and H together here. Another 2 letters that always appear together are E and R, because they're always at the end of profession names, like fisher, maker, astronomer, and they also get stuck. So this mechanical reason for the keyboard order has kind of already been debunked. But another story came up to justify the order of the letters. The telegraph operators. If you've never heard of the telegraph, it's because it's from before our time. It's very old, and it's practically the first means of long-distance communication. It's a really tiny little machine that only uses wires. It sends messages to another machine. On this machine that sends messages, there are only buttons, and the person has to send the text just by pressing buttons. And for that, they had to find a way to send it. The way was to invent a code called Morse code, which basically translates the letters into sounds. So Manual du Mundo in Morse code would sound something like this. Look. You have to be really well trained to understand it, right? That's right. The person on the other end, receiving the message, was super well trained. They would sit with headphones, listening to those sounds, and then they had to turn that into words from the alphabet, right? So she had a typewriter in front of her and she would keep listening and typing like crazy. Because if she missed anything, the message was lost. As you can imagine, these people were also typing ninjas. By the way, when I was a kid, there were still typing courses. Leave a comment if you've ever taken a typing course. On the first typewriters that these telegraph operators used, the keyboard was actually in alphabetical order. In fact, on today's keyboards, there are still sections in alphabetical order. D skips E, then F, G, H skips I, J, K, M. Up here, there's still O and P. Below X skips Y, Z. There's still a trace of the alphabet here, right? But according to this version of the story, a keyboard in alphabetical order wasn't very suitable for these telegraph operators to work with, mainly because they were listening to Morse code, and Morse code has its own particularities. This one next to me is the American Morse code. It's the old Morse code that was used at the time. So, each of these short little dots corresponds to a very short sound. The longer one creates a slightly shorter sound. If we look at the letter Z, it's 3 short ones, a pause, and then another short one. This here. Now, if we put S and E together, you'll see that it makes exactly the same sound. So how is the person on the other side, the one receiving the information, supposed to know if it's Z or S? They don't know. They have to wait for the next letters to figure out which word it is. And only then can they type it. But we have to remember that these people worked really fast. So, when they heard that sound, they had to get their hand ready on Z, S, and E, because as soon as the next letters came, they had to type it right away and quickly hit a key on the typewriter. So look how cool this is. Z, S, and E are in a position where I can touch all three keys at the same time. But this is just an example. There are several other letters that need to be close together because of this detail in Morse code. So, little by little, the keyboard changed and became something similar to what we have today. The craziest thing is to think that the pattern was created for telegraph operators. Something from back in the 19th century still lasts today. For it to last and become established, of course, there was a standards war at the beginning, right? A lot of commercial interests. So, what did Christopher do? He encouraged many people to start learning with this method. He partnered with typing schools, and then people who get used to QWERTY. After learning this way, don't want to change anymore, right? In the end, we have this standard because of a commercial issue and a productivity issue. Even today, the keyboard is closely linked to productivity. Tell me, have you ever used someone else's laptop, and when you went to type, even though it's using the QWERTY keyboard and everything, it feels like you're stuck. The keyboard is more cramped, or it has a bunch of hard-to-reach keys with a weird layout. The keyboard on the ASUS VivoBook 15 was made so it doesn't have any of those problems. I'm going to show you 4 things here. The first thing is the number of keys. There are several keyboards that, to save space, people remove the keys. And then, when you need to access some function, you have to press several buttons at the same time. You kind of turn into a pianist at the keyboard, right? Another cool thing about this keyboard is that it comes with the numeric pad, which makes calculations and everything else much faster. The second thing is the shape and spacing of the keys. You know, when you're typing on a keyboard and you end up pressing a letter by accident or pressing 2 at the same time, that won't happen with this ASUS keyboard because the spacing is really well designed. The third thing is the backlighting. Tell me, if you've never had to tilt your laptop screen just to light up the keyboard with the screen's own brightness, that won't happen here because the letters are extremely clear, easy to identify, and there's also this detail. The Enter key here is all stylish in yellow. The fourth item, and what I think is the most important of all, is the key travel. How much you feel that a key has been pressed. Because sometimes you're on a laptop, and it feels like you're typing on a piece of wood. You press, and you can't tell if the key registered or not. You end up unsure if you're actually typing. You have to pay a lot of attention to where you're pressing.
Muita atenção onde você está teclando.
No, there's no doubt at all. If you pressed it, you know the key is working. But going back to the question of the order of the letters, RT isn't the only keyboard layout we use with our alphabet. Take a look. We switched the letters here and set up a French keyboard. It's a zebra. You can see it starts with A, and the letters over here on the side are swapped. And now I'm curious to know, if one day I went to France and had to type on a keyboard like this, would I be able to type at the same speed as I do on QWERTY? I'm going to use a little program here that can measure how many words per minute I can type. So, it's going to pick a random text in Portuguese, and I'll try to keep up typing this text as fast as I can without mistakes. The text is picked. Let's start. 51 words per minute, and an accuracy of 94%. The French keyboard isn't very different, but in French, they don't have the same accents we have in Portuguese. So, I'm in trouble trying to put accents on the words here. It's like that thing I said about being a pianist, you know. You have to use all GAR with some other keys. No. All the time I put Q instead of A. A. Where's the period on this thing? 2 there. 15 words per second. 79% accuracy. It dropped a lot. In the text, you can see that I made a lot of mistakes with the letter A, because it's where the Q used to be. Another thing is the letter M, which is on the middle row, instead of being at the bottom. That messed me up, especially the accents, but we learned them quickly. Now, the letters A and M really tripped me up. Hold on, we have something really cool here. This here is the Ultra Mega Power keyboard from ASUS. It's called the Rogue Strix Flare. And we changed its keys to alphabetical order. Since we messed up the whole order of the keys, I have to create a new keyboard here in Windows, set it up as if it were a special keyboard. Now, things get tricky, because it's nothing like what we're used to.
Somos... Nossa.
If you ever want to fry your brain, try this experiment. Wow. In the middle of the words, you keep thinking if one letter is close to the other. So when he says kata, do you remember? No, wait a second. C is close to A, which is near D, and D is close to A, all right. No, U is at the end and M is already in the middle. My speed was 10 words per minute, and my accuracy was 96%. The accuracy is higher because here I don't mix up the letters, since I don't know any of them, so I have to look for them one by one. But that's a very interesting thing. My speed started out low. You can see on the graph here, and it increased over time. That means my brain was learning where the letters were, and over time, I got used to it. I got faster. Maybe you're thinking, wait, you showed this keyboard and everything, but has no one ever tried to invent a really good keyboard with the most used letters in easier to reach positions? For example, in Portuguese, we use the letters O, A, and E a lot. So you could put AO and E right under your index fingers, and letters like G and H, the ones we use less, you could put them off to the side. That way, we'd type much faster. They invented that type of keyboard in the 1930s. It's called the Dvorak keyboard, first developed in English. The name comes from its inventor, not the first letters. And with this concept, new layouts were invented for each language. So, let's change the keyboard letters again and make Dvorak in Brazilian Portuguese. This keyboard actually exists. It's called Native Brazilian Portuguese Dvorak. Now we're talking. Look, the vowels are all together here on my left hand, on the middle row, which is the easiest to reach. There's M, T, R, and S, the most used letters. All easy to see. That doesn't necessarily mean I'll do well right away, because I'd have to get used to the keyboard. But maybe my learning curve will be better than with the alphabetical keyboard. Let's see. Easy there, heart. Let's go for it. Where's the comma? Comma. Getting the hang of it. Very fast. Like, there came a point where I was already, automatically, I kind of knew where the letter was. I got the hang of where several letters were, the main ones. I did 10 words per minute, which is the same as with the alphabetical one, meaning a keyboard that's in an order I've never seen in my life. I managed to type at the same speed as with the alphabetical order keyboard, which I also used for the first time. The learning curve here is also really cool. It goes up really fast, and the accuracy is 94%. Because sometimes I miss the letter A, which was what I missed the most, but I found it an incredibly surprising experience. I felt like taking the Dvorak test one more time, just to see if I can get past the 10 mark. If my brain can, for example, get past Aziodi. Theoretically, it's a keyboard that's almost identical to O. 13.36. I've already improved a lot. And the curve went up again there. I'd guess that if I trained a lot, I could get much faster than I am on QWERTY. But this training time also doesn't really explain why QWERTY has lasted until today, because once you get used to a keyboard, it takes time to get used to another. Just one very important thing to finish, okay? This isn't a comparison of keyboard quality. It's just a fun experiment to see how we do when we try a new keyboard for the first time, because it's absolutely unfair for me to use QWERTY to compare with the others. This keyboard is the one I've been using for almost 40 years of my life. Not to mention, when I used this keyboard, I was using an Asus VivoBook 15, so I had a big advantage. Now I've got the hang of it. Or maybe not, right? You're seeing this laptop working all nice like this, but just so you know, we've already taken this little guy apart in ways you can't even imagine. So, if you want to see what's inside this laptop, just click the card we've linked here.